welcome, Barry. Welcome to Anarchy in the Ukulele. We're going to be gentle. He looks nervous, doesn't he? He looks nervous, old Harry Jazz over there. It's,
out of my comfort zone. Out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, it does throw people a bit out of the comfort zone.
Yeah.
Particularly when we, kind of do impressions of people and things like that. So it's
yeah, without one.
But well, thank you for being such a good sport of that, because it's
yes,
we didn't tell anybody that we were doing impressions of them before we did them, so we were slightly worried,
a bit nervous about it.
But no, you're a really good sport on that. So we're going to go gentle. Sam, do you want to ask the first question?
No, I'm okay. You can ask the first question.
Well, our first question is: just how grumpy are you?
Oh, I'm not at all. Anyone who knows me knows I'm not. But this kind of just got cultivated years ago. Because before I even started doing these reviews, what the website was about was just a stream of consciousness blog. And then I started writing, because I'd had a bit of a background in instrument shop tech, so I kind of knew my way around instruments and set them up and stuff. And I used to get really, really riled by these people who've had an instrument for a week and a half and then take to Facebook and tell people what you want to do to fix that action is take the neck off. And you're just like, what? Yeah. So I started writing these rants, and then that sort of got me this moniker of, why are you so grumpy all the time? But I'm not really. Although there are still things that really rile me about the bloody ukulele community. But
yeah. Yeah, it's. Do you find it fun? Because I started doing a rant, didn't I, on our weekly show? I really got into it, and I ended up tearing up books and throwing things around and hitting Sam with stuff. And I thought, this is brilliant. I thought, I don't mind if I get labelled as grumpy. It's kind of like, it's good fun.
Yeah. Oh, it's cathartic. It's definitely cathartic. Because I'd be turning up at ukulele festivals occasionally, and people would sort of say, You're not as grumpy as you are on the website. So it's just me sounding off. It's good for traffic.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's good for traffic. It's you need some kind of persona, don't you, as well? If you're doing YouTube, which is something we'll get onto in a little bit, but you have to have something that's kind of. And I think I say grumpy. We are just joking, but I think you're very honest in your reviews, and it's very clear that you're not going to do a review for the sake of a company or a sponsorship or anything like that. All your reviews are exactly what you think, and you're not going to say it any other way.
Yeah, that's the only way to do it. If anything, it's getting harder because things are getting so much better. I mean, the choice now is the quality is so much better, but occasionally you still see these howlers, and sometimes they've come from brands that have worked with me quite a lot. Yeah. And I've always done very well, and something bad happens, and I don't pull any punches. What's the point? That's just an advert, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. And I think, have you had any bad reactions from brands? I mean, you don't need to go into individual brands, but have you had any kind of sort of, please don't say that again, Barry, or
one or two, and they're not brands that people would know, and in fact I don't even think they're producing instruments anymore, but one or two got quite snotty years ago, and you'd get some quite nasty comments, and they'd sort of comment on everything you ever posted, and you're thinking, now they're trolling me. But to be honest, what's really nice is that the brands where I picked something apart and say this is a problem and I wouldn't have that, and some of it's subjective, some of it's objective, and it's the objective ones where they've messed something up, and then you see that they go away and they change it. And that's really, really nice. And that shows that, brands do listen and take it on board. So, one or two, but not so much these days. No, I think people are quite open to it, because I'm not, if I say something I don't like, I'm not saying it just for kicks.
No.
I'd like to think I've got a reason for it. Yeah. They don't always agree, but it hasn't really got nasty for a while. But there was one or two in the back.
But I mean, like you say, it can be hard to find a bad ukulele, like a really bad ukulele. I mean, there are some definitely still out there. We've experienced some of them, but most of the time you find that you're doing.
Those tend to just be the really cheap ones. I don't think we've maybe found a couple of.
We've found a couple of more expensive ones, but I think it's an interesting, because you've got a lot kind of in that middle ground, but then the ones that really kind of sing and are really doing something special seem to jump out of there, don't they?
Yeah.
And there's certain instruments that just so there's a lot, and they're not bad. There's a lot of very good ukuleles that sit in that kind of middle area, and then I guess you must find you're looking for those ones that really excite you and really kind of.
To be honest, I try and cover all bases, which is why I still go and review, because one of my main recommendations to people is don't go and buy blind from Amazon that's just going to drop ship you a box that's never been opened. But I still review them, and one or two people say, well, why'd you bother reviewing them? Why are you giving them airtime? And it's like, well, because if you look on their reviews on Amazon, they're all 5 stars. Yeah. Because people have either been paid to write 5-star reviews, and I can name a few brands that have done that, or people have just said, hey, I bought a ukulele, I'm happy with it, 5 stars. Yeah. So you think, well, these must be great. It's got 1,000 5-star reviews, but they're not. And if no one's coming in and actually independently looking at them, what's the point? So I always try and keep a spread of all price points. It's really nice to get the really high-end stuff, and I've got some amazing stuff downstairs I've got to get through. It's not all about just sort of, pat myself on the back and saying this is nice. I like to just sort of keep all bases covered. But you're dead right. I mean, it's generally speaking, the quality level's gone up so much. When I started, it was Carla, Ohana, Lanakai, the cheap, really junky, brightly painted stuff, or you were importing from America, from Hawaii, and there wasn't anything else. No. So I couldn't have done what I do now because I'd get through them all in a year. And it's just there's so much now, and it just new stuff keeps coming along, and the quality control, not always, but generally is so much higher than it ever used to be.
Yeah, no, there's some excellent, and it's surprising. You say about the Amazon stuff, and we've had a few Amazon things come through. I find them really hard to talk about because sometimes you get a really good one from Amazon, and I've got to be honest, I still don't really want to recommend it. And I don't have a problem with Amazon. I buy a lot of stuff through Amazon. And I know people do have problems with Amazon, but personally, I don't. I buy a lot of stuff through Amazon, but I have a problem anywhere. I have a problem with box shipping places in general, and so as I've seen you do. You always recommend go to one of the specialist ukulele retail stores. But it gets hard when I've got to say we've had some flights recently that have come from straight out the box, let's say. So they've come from Bax or Tommen or places like that, and they've come incredibly well set up. Yeah. But it's still hard, isn't it? It's hard to kind of I still always want to go and buy from Alex or Matt or and it's that setup makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, I know you guys are musicians, so you know how important it is that the tool's got to work, and it's not really complicated stuff. It's not a dark art, but it's basic fundamentals that have got to work. And I've had Amazon stuff that's really surprised me, and I'll say so if it does, but I will still give the warning because I know it hasn't been opened and I got lucky. But equally, if I get an Amazon instrument that is genuinely terrible. And not just on setup. I mean, I've seen things with frets put in the wrong places, or the nut is wrong, or the scale's just wrong. Never going to be able to work properly. And I guarantee if I say something negative about those, I will get a comment from someone saying, I bought one and mine's fine.
Yeah.
And you go, great, I'm really pleased for you. But you can't say that about everyone. So the question is, do you know how to set up an instrument? If you don't, do you want to play roulette? Because that's what you're doing by going that route. Why do that when you've got specialists that are the same sort of price who are at least going to open the box?
Yeah, and the service is absolutely fantastic as well, isn't it? It's just touching on that. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because I saw a while ago now, way before Christmas, so you did a review of one of the Beatles ukulele. I think you did the Rubber Soul one.
Yeah.
And we had the Yellow Submarine one.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like I had to come to the conclusion when I was like looking at it, as in, what are you buying it for?
Yeah.
And if you buy it for the purpose that it's got the Beatles stuff printed on it and you're going to hang it on your wall and not it's not a serious instrument, then actually it's okay for that purpose.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a very dodgy line, because a ukulele should be playable, and it's not that hard to make them playable. But did you ever think kind of along those lines that some of these things?
Well, I did, and I think you're dead right. I mean, in fact, if you go into Liverpool at the end of Matthew Street, where the Cavern is, there's a Beatles shop for selling, you name it. It's got the Beatles printed on it. They sell those ukuleles in there, obviously, because they're going to sell. They sell them in the Beatles Museum in Liverpool as well.
Yeah.
So they are novelty collector's items for Beatles fans, and I totally get that. But I'm an instrument reviewer, not a Beatles reviewer.
Yeah.
So I have to look at it as an instrument. But the thing that really irritated me about that is that those instruments are carried by JHS. They're not carried by, Beatle Ukulele Company, Inc.
Yeah.
They're carried by a real reputable, well-known musical supply distributor.
Yeah.
So why have they put their name to it? And that irritates me, because they're a big brand who should know better. So they're cashing in on novelty. Well, why not just, you want a novelty ukulele, put strings on it that don't play.
Yeah.
Or make one from Lego, like I did the other day.
Yeah. I love it when you made your one from Lego and you still got people trying to tell you how to make it play. It's like...
You should. I didn't share the emails. I mean, they're private. Honestly, I had one guy saying, well, if you put a metal bar in the neck, do you think that would hold better? And is there any way you could put a pickup in it? And I'm like, and no, he's actually serious. He's working it out. What?
Yeah. I mean, it's about this big, isn't it? It's like with big rubbery. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can make that work. I don't know what you're complaining about.
No, I love that. So going on to a couple of other things, I was really interested, because I've heard you talk about how Got A Ukulele came about, and we'd like to kind of go over that a little bit. But how did you playing the ukulele come about? And that was kind of at the same time, wasn't it? I think, if I remember what I heard you say before.
A little bit before, about 5 years before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've always played guitar badly. Acoustic guitar and electric guitar badly. I keep saying badly because if anyone asks me to play, I'm not going to do it. And as I said before, when I was younger, I used to help out in guitar stores in the back room and learn off the old boys on doing tech. So I got really into that.
Yeah.
So I always just sort of played around with guitars, used to jam with mates in pubs and stuff like that, and do a bit of busking. And I think, like a lot of people, I saw the George Harrison memorial concert at the Royal Albert Hall, where Joe Brown comes on at the end and does a ukulele number, and thought, I fancy one of them. If it's good enough for George, it's good enough for Joe, I'll get one. So I did exactly what I shouldn't do, knowing that I've had guitars and worked in guitar stores. I went and bought the cheapest thing I could find, and it arrived, and one of the frets was set on an angle, the neck was bent, and it was just, I just looked at it and thought, I can't set this up. This is never going to work. And I could have quit at that point, but then said, no, I'll go and drop a bit of money, and I bought that Magic Fluke Flea.
Right, yeah.
One of those. That's my original. If I hadn't bought that, I wouldn't be speaking to you now. So that was about 4 or 5 years before I started the website. And then the website came about as a bit of a sort of daft bet with a mate who'd set up a blog. It was when blogs were really sort of taking off. And he'd set up a blog about his beloved football team, Blackburn Rovers. And I was saying, no one's going to read a blog about Blackburn Rovers. He says, well, if you set up a blog about that bloody ukulele, no one would watch it. So I said, all right. So the first few posts are just me going, hello, I bought a ukulele. And then I noticed people were actually reading it. And it gets a bit addictive, And in those days, you'd get excited because you'd had 10 views.
Yeah.
And those 10 views became sort of 10,000. So that was it, really. It just kind of sort of snowballed from there. It wasn't meant to be.
And it certainly snowballed. I mean, you've got such a big audience from all over the world now as well. When you kind of you see people that post on Facebook and things like that. It's not a UK based thing, is it? It's worldwide completely for your channel.
No, it's about a good half is the USA, and then the rest elsewhere in the world. Yeah, it's crazy, really, when I think about it. It really, really does sort of stop you in your tracks. Which
Yeah.
was just a guy starting out saying, "I bought a ukulele. Look at this. I'm really pleased." And then the next week, I bought another ukulele, like you do. And that was it. That was all it was. And then, as I said, because I had this background in tech, I did some sort of beginners guides that turned into a book, which were about how to change your strings, all that stuff, and that took off. And then people started sending me stuff and saying, "Do you want to review this?" All right, okay.
Oh, amazing.
It's I mean, one of the things with that is, so you get sent stuff, you buy stuff as well, don't you, to review?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's perfect. I just to try and get it as impartial as I can. Obviously, I'm eternally grateful to brands, stores, distributors who loan me stuff, and then they get sent back. But I'm very, very conscious that if that's all I'm doing, they're always just going to keep sending me good examples. Send this one out to Barry, make sure it's set up right. So I do try and keep them on their toes, and I will buy blind and not at the specialist stores. So brands like Carla know this. I'll go and buy one from a drop shipper just to see what that's like. And sometimes it catches them out, sometimes it doesn't. And then equally, there's all those brands that just have nothing to do with me, sort of the Amazon brands that I'll buy and I'll see something and get it. And that is done with the funds that the blog generates. And then they get sold to buy more. And I'm not building my ukulele collection. They'll get reviewed and sold on. So I try and keep it as split as I can, but nothing's perfect, obviously. I haven't got the money to go out and be buying 1,500 quid Moonbirds every other week just to review them.
No. I mean, one of the things with that, what is your ukulele collection? What's your personal ukulele collection? What's it look like? Big, small?
Really not many. I've got a Canalea tenor that I bought from Sus in about 2007, one of their first K1s. That now costs about 3 times the price, and that's just a really nice tenor. I've got the Flea that I would never sell because that was my first serious instrument. I've also got a Fluke. I've got a couple of those colour Anuinuis just because I love them. I think I've got a little picker. Who's that? Dave Morgan Mini Pineapple, just because I loved it. And then the only instrument that I've ever reviewed that was lent to me, and I liked it so much. It's at the bottom of the pile down here, so I couldn't even begin to get it out. And I liked it so much that I got in touch with the luthier and said, "I've got to buy it." And I gave him the asking price for it, and that's by Kev Mulcock at KM Ukuleles in South Wales, and it's a Dreadnought concert, and it's the most amazing sounding instrument. It's just divine. Nothing glitzy or flashy, but just sounds so good.
So
and that's it, really. I don't think I've got much more than that. Maybe a couple of junky ones knocking about, but
which is reasonable considering how many ukuleles you have in your hands. I mean, it's. I think that's a reasonable, sort of a sensible collection.
The temptation would be you review one and be like, "Oh, this is amazing," and then you want to keep it, and you sort of gradually build up to you've got too many.
Well, you've got to keep it under control, but I haven't got the space. I mean, I do get people who say, "Oh, he's only doing this to build his ukulele collection." I'm just like, have a look at that list. There's nearly 500 there. Where are they?
Where 500 ukuleles.
A house built of ukuleles? No.
Yeah. I mean, we have them come pass through, but and we do buy a lot of our ukuleles for review for the same reasons that you do. But they all have to go.
Yeah,
we've got the Revelator still sat here, but we on a weekly basis I say to Sam, that's got to go, got to get rid of it. And I've actually only got really one ukulele, I think.
Well, you've got the Martin.
I've got my Martin, which I think you did a review. I can't remember if you did a review on the Martin Street Master. I think you did.
I did.
And it's one of those weird things, because if I scored it as per how you score your ukuleles, I wouldn't necessarily score it very high, but there's something about it that I love it, and that's my one ukulele that I would say is it was
like your first one. It was the first one you bought, and just it's very sentimental.
Martin ukes, other than the the vintage stuff or the stuff made in the USA get a really bad rap from a lot of Martin aficionados, and I think fairly, who are getting basically snotty that, made in Mexico, not real. They're really good, you know. I've not played Martin I've disliked, Mexico or otherwise.
No.
They play really nicely. I think my only gripe about Streetmaster was a purely subjective one, and that's that I don't like relic instruments. That's just me.
You see, I love a relic instrument, guitar wise. I'm just a bit kind of a poser.
I've done 5,000 gigs with this.
If I'm doing a gig, my bass is a relic jazz bass, and I like it for loads of reasons. I like it because it's modelled on a 1960s jazz bass that, if I had to buy, would cost plus of £40,000 at the minute.
Yeah.
And that one didn't, because it's a modern relic. And that got me into relics because I really realised straight away that I didn't have to be overprotected on it.
Yeah.
And I can take it to gigs, and I'm not. And the number of times it's fallen over on stage, and I'm just kind of like, well, do you know what? As long as it's still playing and nothing's broken on it, it's just another dink in it. So I really like relics. The Martin Streetmaster is just relic in the most ridiculous fashion because none of the warm patches are where you would actually wear any of them.
Yeah. I thought that. I thought, well, what's that? Yeah. What colour does that wear?
There's one down the bottom there, and it's like, what are you doing down there? How are you strumming that? It's like a violin or something.
Yeah. So what advice personally would you give to someone who was picking up the ukulele for the first time, as a complete beginner? What advice would you give?
Well, what you mean? Somebody who's never played an instrument before?
Go for that.
Well, I think the same with any instrument. I think I'm a big believer in getting even some basic lessons, even if it just means dropping in for an hour or two and just getting some, how do I hold this thing kind of thing. And there's an awful lot of good stuff on the internet, of course, for that kind of thing. But the same thing I always say to anyone who's starting out with the ukulele is, I think the very best thing you can do is go and play with other people. There are so many clubs, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a club. Just go and play with some mates. Just play with other people, and I just think you'll see your development get so much quicker doing that. And I appreciate some people. Not everyone can do that, but you've got. I think just find some sort of way of some sort of self-criticism. Record yourself, watch yourself back, be honest. That kind of thing. Maybe that's getting a bit more advanced than what you were asking me, but I mean the absolute basics. I think, there's a lot of tutors out there and clubs that will sort of offer taster sessions, that kind of stuff. If you're an absolute beginner and you never picked one up, I just think that goes for every instrument, I would say. I'm not suggesting, booking 12 months worth of lessons unless you want to, but
it's the great thing with ukulele though, isn't it? Because the clubs are out there. If you play saxophone, you're going to find it very hard to find a saxophone club to go and jam with on a Thursday night. But ukulele, it's so available, isn't it?
It's so accessible, and
that accessible. That's so why not do that? There's one in every town.
Yeah, and obviously you play the ukulele in reviews and stuff. Do you go out and play often?
Not anymore.
No. You used to have a band, didn't you?
I was in a band. Yeah, we were plugged in. Playing sort of rock covers and some originals, and it was fun until we all fell out. You know what it's like. But it was. We were sort of right at the start, really. I mean, I'm not saying we're there, doing the sort of tours with Jake and stuff, but we were playing some big festivals and headlining them, and it was fun. And it just ran out of steam. But partly, I was going to be sort of easing back on it anyway, because I'd started doing that when my daughter was still baby in arms, really. So me being out on an evening didn't really mean I'd miss much. And then she before you knew it, she was 5-6 years old, and I'm thinking, I'm never here. So I was going to turn that back anyway. So these days, no, I don't. I've done a bit of busking and a bit of jamming and open mics with guitar, but I've not been out and played the ukulele in anger since 2014.
Wow. Do you play much at home for your own pleasure? Or is it literally you've got so many coming through for reviews, you pick them up for the reviews?
I try to, but not as much as I
Yeah.
used to, because my spare time goes into doing the site, and I've got an instrument to play. But I have got. I mean, you're asking me what instruments I've got. I bought a baritone at the end of last year, and I never liked baritones. I didn't understand them, but I've sort of been converted. So at the moment, I've got a flight baritone downstairs that
Nice.
I'm really enjoying. So that's sort of noodle on the sofa stuff.
Yeah.
It feels like picking up a guitar, but then equally I've got a guitar downstairs, so I'm just likely to pick that up as well.
Is it one of their electric baritones or the Fireball or?
It's the Aurora.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Grand, solid spruce top, laminate rosewood back and sides. Wasn't a huge amount of money, and it's really nice. It's just nice to sit and noodle with.
Yeah,
kind of woody. Nice.
What's your opinion on the electric ukes, as in the modelled after an electric guitar
with a pickup and everything?
I can tell it's going to be the same as mine. I can tell.
Personally, I've got two electric guitars there. I've got a couple of nice Fenders, so I don't need one. I don't get this. I'm playing in a uke band, so therefore all the instruments have to be small. Mm-hmm. So I used to play in this band with ukuleles, and we had a bass player, and he played a full-scale bass.
Yeah.
And we used to have people come up to us at the end saying, "Why is your bass player not play bass ukulele?" And we're like, "Because he's a really good bass player and he's got a bass, so it sounds good with that." It doesn't have to be small. So I don't understand the miniaturization in the first place. No. I think that, as you'll know, with electric guitars, the smaller you go, you're going to get. It's harder and harder to get that setup dialed in, the intonation right. It gets so finicky, and I find they're finicky to play for that reason. The one I saw, and it was a short-lived thing that Fender did. Fender did that sort of alternate reality series, tenor telly. It was a tenor guitar. So it was kind of like 3/4 scale Telecaster, 4 strings, but they delivered it set up, tuned in baritone ukulele tuning, not tenor guitar tuning. And I thought it was bloody wonderful because it felt just like a guitar and it wasn't finicky. I think they're incredibly popular. What do I know? You know, the shops can't get them in enough for the brand.
I feel exactly the same as you. I think there's a place for them if you've only ever played the ukulele and you're not coming at it from a guitar point of view. Then you know what, you can have a bit of fun with it and you can put it through an effects pedal. Yeah. You can put any ukulele with a pickup through an effects pedal, but I think, you know, if it's that, what really bugs me a little bit, and I guess I've been a bit careful saying this before, but it is the modelling on the well-known guitar makes, because to me it just lacks a bit of kind of inventiveness.
Yeah, there's no ingenuity in it.
About it. You know, you've got this solid body electric that you could do literally anything you wanted with because it's solid body and it's about the strings and the pickup and the neck. Yeah. And it's kind of like, and I think in the pictures they look really nice because they look like guitars.
Yeah.
And then you get one and it's this big and you're kind of like, you know, I've got a toy Gibson. Yeah. I'm just, you know, and so I think I'm the same. I don't really get the point of them. We bought one that I used in one gig with our band. Mm-hmm. And we were rehearsing for some gigs coming up at the minute the other day. And you said, "Are you not using the I'm going to name it the Flight Centurion?" Yeah. And I was just like, "No, absolutely not."
Well, I mean, I did a review of it last week, and I thought it was good.
Yeah, you liked it. Yeah. But I just kind of I can't quite get to grips with that, and the strings feel like cheese graters because
they're very, very thin,
really light, really easy to bend out of tune. I mean, a lot of electric guitars are like that, but nothing like these little things. I just find them. That's just me, you know.
Yeah. I agree, and I think if you are going to have one, it kind of has to be a baritone because otherwise they're too high pitched to strum with distortion. I think it sounds, you know, it's like a wasp farting in a jam jar. It's just so you've got to go for the baritone one just to get a bit of depth in there, and then you might as well play a guitar. So there's a couple of questions I really wanted to ask you, which was, would you call yourself a content creator? in the whole scheme of YouTube. You've got these that's the thing. Bear in mind, part of our business has now been YouTube over the last few years. We've we have numerous channels and things that we work on with other people. And we're a publishing company. I don't know how much you know about us, but so we publish music and books and different things. And we had to kind of go, do you know what? The book market, however you like it, is dying. We have to go into YouTube and podcasts and all that kind of stuff. And so that's meant kind of looking at a lot of content creators. Do you consider yourself to be a content creator?
Well, first of all, I hate the term. I hate the term influencer even more. But I've got to accept that that's kind of that's what it is.
You tick all the boxes.
Yeah, you create content and you influence what ukuleles people buy.
Yeah, your influence is huge.
And I hate it because it just makes me think of those people sort of touting lipstick so they can get trips to Hawaii. And that's not happening to me. Not that I'm going to wear it kind of goes back to how I started, because when I started doing reviews, for about the first 4 years, there were no videos. Because I'm a big fan of the printed word. I used to read car magazines and things like that, and that's where I'd get my reviews from. I much prefer the written part of what I do. Still do. That's the bit I like. And it was only through people saying, look, if you don't start putting videos with these, no one's going to be reading these much longer. And I went, okay, fair enough. Started doing them. They were really sort of half-assed and badly done. And now that's where all the traffic is. So I've got to accept it just is what it is. It's still not my favourite thing, though. I still much prefer written word stuff myself. Yeah. But there we are.
So, I mean, next time we do a Harry Jazz sketch, we're definitely going to put Harry Jazz influencer.
Yeah.
On that. What was it? There was something else. Can you just scan that down again for us a little bit? So there's only a couple more questions, but to be honest, Barry, I nearly called you Harry then, Barry. we could talk to you forever, so we will definitely get you back on at some point, or even into the studio at some point.
Yeah,
come and show us how to do a proper review.
Yeah.
So one was, do you have a favourite ukulele? Now I'm going to say outside of the one that you talked about earlier. Well, no, I don't know. Am I going to say that?
I don't know.
Well, what was after, out of all the ukuleles you've reviewed, do you have one that that was the favourite one? That was such an amazing ukulele. And also, was that one that you've given one of the highest marks to, or was it something else that actually...
I think it probably changes year on year, obviously, but so far, and it's odd to do this because I'm going back to something very, very recent. Before last year, it was a couple of instruments by Martin Beck in Canada, who I think had really just been distributed by Matt at World of Ukes. And he's a luthier builder in West Coast Canada. And I don't think I've ever seen anything quite so beautifully done and sounded so beautiful as his instruments. So that got one of the highest scores ever.
Yeah.
I suppose the Ken Timms Little Sopranos has also got one of the highest scores ever. And I had one of those and I had to sell it because my boiler had broken and I needed the money. And now they're about 4 times the price, which I get the blame for because I said they're cheap.
Do you know, I've had stuff like that, instruments I've had to sell, and it's horrible.
So I can't afford one now. But actually the one that I absolutely just fell over with was this one from, I'm going to have to pronounce the bloody Swedish word again now. Oh no. Brujada, made by a guy in Stockholm that came to me last year, a boat paddle made from laburnum wood. It's just astonishingly beautifully made and sounding, and that one really, that nothing's really sort of made me sort of drop my jaw, quite so much as that, and that was only a month or two ago. So who knows what's around the corner?
Yeah,
so
who knows? It could change.
That Kevin Mulcutt one I bought. I mean, that did do that to me, and have a look at it's on the pages. Really, he'll admit it himself. It's really quite plain, very simple. But wow, it sounds good.
Yeah. One of the things I was going to ask was, who do you view as the most influential person in the ukulele world?
Oh my word!
Because I'd kind of pick you, Barry, because you're certainly on a buying scale. I don't think there's anyone more influential than you.
Yeah.
I think no one does what you do. Your reviews. We do reviews, but it's just a very small part of what we do, and we don't consider that to be what we are as a channel. We're buffoons, really. We are the Jeremy Clarkson of the ukulele world. Is what we're turning into. But no one does quite what you do. So I think from a buying point of view, you are up there as one, if not the most influential person. But who do you think is influential in the ukulele world?
I really don't know how to answer that. I mean, I suppose there's all sorts of different categories, aren't there? I mean,
Yeah, I guess there's playing. There's
well, it's hard to say someone like Jake Shimbukuro isn't the most influential player just because
yeah,
just have to look at the amount of traffic he gets, and everyone knows him. This guy's played the Royal
yeah,
Albert Hall, Sydney Opera House, the Ukulele Orchestra of Great Britain, hugely influential
yeah,
to the market and beyond. The teachers we've got out there, I mean, really good teachers.
yeah,
A bit of a bugbear of mine is that, I mean, you talk about me having a lot of subscribers. I've got nowhere near like the subscribers that some of these teachers, and I use the quotes on YouTube, who are essentially doing nothing but putting up play-alongs. They're not
yeah,
teachers. I mean, there are some real teachers out there. James Hill was a teacher, a
yeah,
real. Phil Dolman was a real teacher. Matt Stead was a real teacher. These people are qualified teachers, and they're really, really, really good people, and they should be getting much more traffic than they get. But the influencer teachers are stealing the march. So that's why I don't do teaching, because I'm not a teacher, and I don't want
yeah,
to go down that route. I'd have 10 times the amount of subscribers if I did,
yeah,
but I don't want that because it's not me. I'm not a teacher. So
yeah,
I don't know how to answer the question. There's so many different facets. I mean, there are festival organisers, people like Mary. I mean, what she's done to get that the Got Festival as big as it was. I mean, that's not only influenced people in the UK, that's influenced other festival organisers around the world.
yeah,
So there's lots of them, and I think it really comes back to something I said to Alex Beds on an interview I did with him, and it's about that the ukulele community is such a broad thing. And there's so many people doing. I just do a bit of it. I just do this, as you say, the buying stuff, or just looking at models. But I'm not doing the teaching stuff. I'm not performing it. And I think there's a lot of good people doing lots of different facets, and you put them all together, and it's a really nice cohesive thing. Great for new players. None of this existed when I started.
No, it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. And I guess for us, that's kind of what our channel is about. It's about pulling all those things together and getting, people like you on the channel to talk about what you're doing, and other guests that we've had. I think that's how we see ourselves as, we have Paul who does some of the teaching stuff, and we will do kind of, the occasional pop songs and things like that. Generally, only if we can find something funny to do about it. It tends to be our kind of what we're looking at. But we kind of, with the UKIS, it was about pulling a community together in one direction for something. And I think that's how our channel's evolved over the last year, hasn't it? To kind of do that kind of stuff.
And I think there's absolutely a place for that. It's kind of, it's like the video equivalent of, it's a magazine show, isn't it? It's, and so it's a magazine, and there's a place for those as well. So, I mean, there's two more influencers. The great ukulele stores of the UK. I mean, they're influencing people every day that walk through the door.
I've got to say, I find Alex one of the most influential people, just because every word he says I believe. But the same stuff. I watch all your videos, and I think in the UK we seem to have something going that actually isn't that available everywhere else in the world. And okay, you've got the Hawaii Music Supply channel and those bits and bobs. It's very, very geared towards the high end ukulele player, and I think in the UK we do cater for everybody. But when you look at the people that we've got talking, particularly on YouTube, but talking about the instrument, and then people coming up, and I know he's not in the UK, but people like Sammy and what he does, When you talk about teaching, I think Sammy's actually one of the most underrated teachers because he comes from a massive teaching background, from teaching in schools and colleges and teaching music to then going on to the ukulele. And I think you've got all of these people that if you kind of put them all together, we always seem to be striving a little bit for what's going on in America or what's going on in Hawaii. But actually what's going on in the UK is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I think the UK scene and the UK on these topics, on things that are happening in magazines and videos and whatnot, I think we seem to be a bit more. I think, yeah, you're right. I think it's a bit more for everyone. I think it's a bit less corporate.
Yeah.
And I think that helps because I do see a lot of videos from America and they do sort of come across to me like, sponsored by.
Yeah.
And, well, there we are. I won't say anymore.
I know where you're thinking.
The world's best setup.
Yeah. I know exactly where you're thinking. Thank you so much for coming and doing this. Like I say, I think we could talk to you all afternoon, but one thing I wanted to touch on really quickly because I think it's really important. Everyone knows you as Barry Maz, ukulele, Got A Ukulele. You, aside from that, very keen photographer.
Yeah, amateur. Yeah.
To which I've looked at some of your photos online. Amazing, really, really, really nice stuff. How much of the ukulele world, how much has that taken over your life and changed your life? Because obviously you have other hobbies, other things, work. You're having to juggle all this. We have a luxury in that we call this work. Until the money runs out.
Well, yeah,
anyway, yeah. But you have to juggle all this stuff. How much has it taken over your life? I mean,
it's not actually too bad because when I started doing this, I wasn't doing them every week, and I'm still not doing them quite every week. There's quite a few breaks, but I wasn't doing them anything like every week. But they were really haphazard, and it would take me probably 2 weeks to get the thing done. I could not find the time to do that now, but I've got a sort of a system in place that something arrives, I know what's what, I know what needs to be done when, and actually I can get through it fairly quickly. It probably does kill a good day in the weekend, but I can do something like that. You can do something. I mean, the great thing about doing videos and having lights and stuff is some of the videos I've recorded, people think, oh, he's recorded that this morning, but actually it was recorded on a Tuesday night. You play around with time. But yeah, I've got it down to a sort of a system. I wouldn't call it a system. But yeah, I know it doesn't take over my life that much. And the family always comes first. I'm not here next weekend. The wife's birthday, so I'll be away. So yeah, as long as that comes first. But you touched earlier saying, well, it's got to be fun, and it is fun. I'm really lucky because I just get to have instruments that I would otherwise never see come through my hands, and not just sort of look at them in a shop, but actually sort of live with them for a couple of weeks. And how's that fun? If you like instruments like I do,
yeah. I think that's. I mean, I love music. I love any instrument. So, when you pick up something new, it doesn't actually matter what it's like at first. It's something to try. If it makes you angry, it makes you angry, and that's part and parcel of it, isn't it? It makes you happy. It makes you happy. One very last question. And we will let you go, I promise. Where do you see this going? Where do you see what let me rephrase that again. What do you want to see from ukulele manufacturers? Big question.
Well, it is, and I've kind of touched on this before. I've got it wrong before. I've before said I thought that things were going off the boil, and then all of a sudden a bunch of new instruments come out and catch me off guard, and you go, where do they come from? Wow. I think we had that real dip through the COVID years where everything got a bit boring and there wasn't a lot of new stuff. Okay, we didn't have a live NAMM, so I don't think there was the impetus for the new stuff to be launched. And there was that sort of fallow period, and I thought, this is really quite... I was genuinely at the point where I was thinking, well, what am I going to write about? Because I'm just going to be going back just doing Amazon stuff. And then that kind of sort of picked up. I don't know how much more you can reinvent the instrument. It's a ukulele.
Yeah.
where do you go from there? And I think what I'm seeing already, and I've been seeing for quite some time, is that from when I started, it wasn't taken that seriously. It's clearly now being taken a lot more seriously. And yeah, there are some people who will still say there's absolutely no reason to spend over 50 quid, and they're quite happy with that. But the very fact that shops can't get instruments like Moonbirds in stock enough to satisfy demand tells me that there's a lot of people out there who take it very, very seriously indeed. So that something's changed into and that move up into that sort of sector. So I think you're just going to see a lot more design of innovation, just beauty, just nice bits of decor. But ultimately, the core instruments are just going to be the core instruments, aren't they? They've got to play well. I don't know. I don't know what more you can do with it, but yeah, I think it's already being taken more seriously. So where do you go from there? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that's the beautiful thing of not being a manufacturer, isn't it? Because that's their job, and then they do come out with these instruments that just surprise you.
Well, it's the same as the guitar world. I mean, the guitar really sort of took off post first ukulele boom, 50s, late 40s, early 50s through skiff rock and roll, and has been popular ever since. And it's not like guitar makers are going out of business; they're still making them. The Telecaster and the Stratocaster still look exactly the same, and they still sell. And it's just as popular as it ever was. I don't think they're wondering, going, "Oh God, well, how do we innovate?"
No, but still, guitar manufacturers like Martin changing their bracing system recently. And it's interesting enough, we spent some time with Pete Howlett, and he's still working on different ways of bracing ukuleles and stuff. How many years he's been doing it? He's saying, but what if I do this and what if I do that, and this will make this sound different. And
that's always been the case. I mean, with acoustic guitars, going back to the earliest Spanish classical stuff, they've been doing that and changing bracing patterns. And I don't think there's anything new under the sun. Actually, I think it's that it will always get tinkered with. It will always be popular. But of course, you've got the demographic changes, because as people drop off the perch because they're getting too old, you get new players coming through, and to a new player, seeing a Stratocaster for the first time, that's the first time I've ever seen one. Wow, amazing. So I don't think things like that, they just kind of exist. They carry on. And I think I was worried for a time that the ukulele was going to sort of fizzle out, but I think it's kind of established itself better now that taken more seriously as an instrument.
Yeah, definitely. Barry, thank you so much for joining us, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully we'll meet up in person at some point and we can do some kind of double act. Although my Harry Jazz voice sounds nothing at all like Barry.
No, it's not quite. He needs to work on it.
Effectively, if I do an impression of anybody, it turns out like Phil Mitchell.
Yes, so basically. No matter who.
Well, I need to buy a blow up turkey, I think, don't I?
Yeah, we'll send you one. We'll send you the turkey. But no, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll meet up at some point on the ukulele circuit or somewhere, and have a chat in person. But sure. Thank you so much for your time.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Barry. Cheers.
Here we go.